What is this? Why me? Is this a mistake?" Then the elderly lady heard the words, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay," flow through her mind. It was the day she received the judgment that was filed against her in the Superior Court of Justice. Before we continue, give us a like, subscribe, and comment. Let us know where you are listening from. As you listen to the story, see if you can identify the medical condition and the biblical reference. Now to the story, Man's Best Friend. The lady's home, which is nestled on Tranquility Avenue in rural Ancaster, has a unique feature, a water fountain shaped like a wishing well. In the cool of the summer evenings, she would sit at her front window, enjoying the neighborhood as the people walked their dogs. Unbeknownst to anyone, something was resting heavily on her chest. She was carrying a problem she could not handle on her own, and seeing the dogs pass by with their handlers gave her much comfort. As she sat by the window, she remembered the day when the judgment arrived. That day, she was wandering around her home when the doorbell rang. When she answered it, a tall gentleman handed her an official-looking envelope. The lady nervously opened the envelope, only to find that a judgment had been filed against her in the Superior Court of Justice. Panic started to step in as she read the contents of the judgment. She felt an overwhelming sense of doom, followed by excessive perspiration. Her heart rate accelerated, and the tremors in her hands came back. By this time, she was having difficulty breathing and started to hyperventilate. Being a retired nurse, she recognized the symptoms as those of an anxiety attack. It immediately occurred to her that the first thing she must do was control her breathing. She remembered the technique of counting in odd numbers to slow down her heart rate. So, she started 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. By the time she got to 13, her breathing had slowed considerably, and the anxiety was under control. As the lady read the judgment, questions swirled through her mind. Questions like, "What is this? Why me? Is this a mistake?" As she vividly remembered that terrifying day, she felt an anxiety attack starting to emerge. Just then, as if to snap her out of her thoughts, she saw a lady walking 3 dogs. The problem with the judgment had to be dealt with, but for now, she pushed it to the back of her mind. As she did so, a gentle calm came over her, and she heard the words, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay." She remembered something similar in the book of Hebrews in the New Testament. "Vengeance belonged unto me, I will recompense." She interpreted this to mean that she must not take personal revenge, and that ultimate justice and retribution belong to God, who will judge fairly and in His own timing. The lady knew in her heart that the only way to overcome evil is with good. So she decided then and there that her faith would carry her through. She was very thankful for the thought interruption. She immediately turned her attention to the dogs to identify their pedigrees. She recognized them as 2 British bulldogs and a very cute Maltese. It was then that she realized that all the neighborhood dogs were of different species and pedigrees. It was as if it were well planned, for no 2 homes had the same dog. As they passed by, she took pride in the number of different pedigrees she could recognize. A few meters down the street from her home was a huge, beautiful dog park where the dogs could run and play. Next to it is a seniors' retirement home. Many of her neighbors would use their dogs as emotional support for the elderly residents, primarily to combat loneliness and social isolation. The dog's presence seems to provide unconditional love and companionship, helping reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression among elderly residents. A gentle smile touched her lips as she recalled a comforting truth. The simple act of stroking a dog's soft fur and meeting their adoring gaze could unlock a cascade of warmth within. It was more than just companionship. It was a profound connection that stirred the release of cherished feel-good hormones like oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine, washing away the harsh edges of cortisol, the body's unwelcome stress hormone. She did not possess a dog. However, she grew up with dogs and knew a bit about pedigree. As she gazed out her window at the neighbor walking their dogs, she was proud of herself for recognizing so many different types of dogs. She saw a cute Maltese, a Labrador, a Shih Tzu, several poodles of different sizes and colors, and an oh-so-cute Pomeranian. She also recognizes a Greyhound and a British Bulldog. There were other dogs that she could not recognize. Sometimes she felt as if she was living a dream. She often found herself drifting into a delightful reverie, a feeling akin to living within a cherished dream. She recalled the gentle charm of an old children's television series, Mr. Dress-Up. She fondly recalled sitting with her young son, their eyes wide with wonder, as Mr. Dress-Up guided preschoolers through enchanting arts and crafts and imaginative games. Central to his magic was a grand, mysterious truck overflowing with an endless array of costumes. In her new surroundings, she rediscovered the pure, unadulterated joy of those simple, beautiful days gone by, a warmth spreading through her heart. A similar feeling always comes over her as she watches the owners walking their dogs as they pass by her home. As the neighbors passed by with their dogs, the dogs would often linger near her home, as if they were listening to the sounds coming from the pond. One evening, while sitting at her window, looking out onto the pond, she dozes off into a light sleep. A warm feeling blanketed her body, and she had a vision of 3 light brown dogs standing by the pond, looking up at her home. In the dream, she was not afraid. She was completely at peace with the 3 dogs standing, looking up at her home. They were not fierce dogs, but they stood as if they were on guard. The vision in the dream seemed so real to her that she started to wonder if she had seen those dogs before. Try as she might, she could not identify the dog's breed. She studied the dogs as they sat there motionless, not even wagging their tails. Finally, after what seemed like hours, but it was only minutes, she opened her eyes and looked out at the pond. But there were no dogs, only birds singing and drinking from the fountain. The vision affected her so profoundly that she went to her computer to investigate its meaning. The computer told her that 3 light brown dogs at her house symbolized incoming protection, loyalty, or positive grounded energy entering her home life. She did not follow astrology or dream interpretations, but somehow the interpretation gave her peace as she faced the pending judgment. The interpretations went on to discuss protection and guardianship, stability and grounding, and waiting for direction. It also suggested that the dogs looking up at the house suggests they are watching over the house or guarding her personal life and, by extension, her personal space. Being a person of great faith, she thought of the Bible story of Daniel and his vision. The story of Daniel is found in the book of Daniel in the Old Testament. The first few chapters focus on historical narratives and Daniel interpreting other people's dreams. The second half consists of Daniel's own prophetic visions. In the second chapter of Daniel, we see that the weight of the crown felt heavier than usual for King Nebuchadnezzar. His dream stole his peace, leaving him sleepless. The king then summoned his most trusted advisers and told them he had a dream and that he must know its meaning. But none of his advisers could interpret the dream. Then Daniel went to Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, and told him that he could interpret the dream. The Bible story went on to say that although this is the king's dream, Daniel is the one who received the interpretation in a night vision from God. The dream of the great statue made of different metals parallels the sequence of world kingdoms. This is how Daniel interpreted the dream for the king. The dream revealed a chronological succession of 4 earthly empires. The empires started with the Babylonian head of gold and were followed by the kingdoms of silver, bronze, and iron. The dream was saying that human empires are transient and destined to fail, but God's sovereignty is absolute, and his kingdom will endure forever. Then the king placed Daniel in a high position and lavished him with many gifts. She concluded Daniel's dream as, "Do not sweat the small stuff. Material things will pass away. People are what matters." As dusk settled, casting long shadows across the tranquil pond, she found herself nestled by her window, her gaze softly fixed on the shimmering water. A gentle warmth, like a cherished quilt, began to envelop her, coaxing her into a peaceful, light slumber. In that tender space between wakefulness and dreams, a heartwarming vision unfolded. 3 playful, light brown dogs appeared, their eyes bright with affection. They stood by the pond's edge, looking up at her cozy home as if sending silent greetings. At that point, she knew in her heart all was well. Thank you for listening. Give us a like and stay tuned for more episodes from the Healing Fountain.